have fallen victim to a callous terrorist attack, an attack that targeted some of the youngest people in our society with cold calculation. This was among the worst terrorist incidents we have ever experienced in the United Kingdom. And although it is not the first time Manchester has suffered in this way, it is the worst attack the city has experienced and the worst ever to hit the north of England. The police and security services are working at speed to establish the complete picture, but I want to tell you what I can at this stage. At 10:33 last night, the police were called to reports of an explosion at Manchester Arena in Manchester city centre near Victoria train station. We now know that a single terrorist detonated his improvised explosive device near one of the exits of the venue, deliberately choosing the time and place to cause maximum carnage and to kill and injure indiscriminately. The explosion coincided with the conclusion of a pop concert, which was attended by many young families and groups of children. All acts of terrorism are cowardly attacks on innocent people, but this attack stands out for its appalling, sickening cowardice, deliberately targeting innocent, defenceless children and young people who should have been enjoying one of the most memorable nights of their lives. As things stand, I can tell you that, in addition to the attacker, 22 people have died and 59 people have been injured. Those who were injured are being treated in 8 different hospitals across Greater Manchester. Many are being treated for life-threatening conditions. And we know that among those killed and injured were many children and young people. We struggle to comprehend the warped and twisted mind that sees a room packed with young children not as a scene to cherish, but as an opportunity for carnage. But we can continue to resolve to thwart such attacks in future, to take on and defeat the ideology that often fuels this violence, and if there turn out to be others responsible for this attack, to seek them out and bring them to justice. The police and security services believe that the attack was carried out by one man, but they now need to know certainty, stability and strong leadership. And since I became Prime Minister, the government has delivered precisely that. Despite predictions of immediate financial and economic danger, since the referendum we have seen consumer confidence remain high, record numbers of jobs, and economic growth that has exceeded all expectations. We have also delivered on the mandate that we were handed by the referendum result. Britain is leaving the European Union, and there can be no turning back. And as we look to the future, the government has the right plan for negotiating our new relationship with Europe. We want a deep and special partnership between a strong and successful European Union and a United Kingdom that is free to chart its own way in the world. That means we will regain control of our own money, our own laws and our own borders. And we will be free to strike trade deals with old friends and new partners all around the world. This is the right approach, and it is in the national interest. But the other political parties oppose it. At this moment of enormous national significance, there should be unity here in Westminster. But instead, there is division. The country is coming together, but Westminster is not. In recent weeks, Labour have threatened to vote against the final agreement we reach with the European Union. The Liberal Democrats have said they want to grind the business of government to a standstill. The Scottish National Party say they will vote against the legislation that formally repeals Britain's membership of the European Union. And unelected members of the House of Lords have vowed to fight us every step of the way. Our opponents believe, because the government's majority is so small, that our resolve will weaken and that they can force us to change course. They are wrong. They underestimate our determination to get the job done. And I am not prepared to let them endanger the security of millions of working people across the country. Because what they are doing jeopardises the work we must do to prepare for Brexit at home, and it weakens the government's negotiating position in Europe. If we do not hold a general election now, their political game playing will continue, and the negotiations with the European Union will reach their most difficult stage in the run-up to the next scheduled election. Division in Westminster will risk our ability to make a success of Brexit, and it will cause damaging uncertainty and instability to the country. So we need a general election, and we need one now, because we have at this moment a one-off chance to get this done while the European Union agrees its negotiating position and before the detailed talks begin. I have only recently and reluctantly come to this conclusion. Since I became Prime Minister, I have said that there should be no election until 2020. But now I have concluded that the only way to guarantee certainty and stability for the years ahead is to hold this election and seek your support for the decisions I must take. And so tomorrow, I will move a motion in the House of Commons calling for a general election to be held on the 8th of June. That motion, as set out by the Fixed Term Parliament Act, will require a two-thirds majority of the House of Commons. So I have a simple challenge to the opposition parties. You have criticised the government's vision for Brexit. You have challenged our objectives. You have threatened to block the legislation we put before Parliament. This is your moment to show you mean it, to show you are not opposing the government for the sake of it, to show that you do not treat politics as a game. Let us tomorrow vote for an election. Let us put forward our plans for Brexit and our alternative programmes for government, and then let the people decide. And the decision facing the country will be all about leadership. It will be a choice between strong and stable leadership in the national interest, with me as your Prime Minister, or weak and unstable coalition government led by Jeremy Corbyn, propped up by the Liberal Democrats who want to reopen the divisions of the referendum, and Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP. Every vote for the Conservatives will make it harder for opposition politicians who want to stop me from getting the job done. Every vote for the Conservatives will make me stronger when I negotiate for Britain with the Prime Ministers, Presidents and Chancellors of the European Union. Every vote for the Conservatives will mean we can stick to our plan for a stronger Britain and take the right long-term decisions for a more secure future. It was with reluctance that I decided the country needs this election, but it is with strong conviction that I say it is necessary to secure the strong and stable leadership the country needs to see us through Brexit and beyond. So tomorrow, let the House of Commons vote for an election. Let everybody put forward their proposals for Brexit and their programmes for government. And let us remove the risk of uncertainty and instability and continue to give the country the strong and stable leadership it demands.
Dramatic announcement in Downing Street by the Prime Minister calling a general election for the 8th of June. Previously, she had said she would not call a snap election, and referencing what she said about the prospects of a snap election in the past, she said it is only recently and reluctantly that she has come to the conclusion
of a Labour government that had a very bad record in terms of house building. This is the government that is going to change that. It's this government that is putting more into building more homes to ensure that young people do have a better opportunity to get on the housing ladder. That's why we're a government that actually will be governing for everyone in this country.
Jeremy Corbyn! Mr. Speaker, that Labour government put a decent home standard in place in every part of this country. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure, Mr. Speaker, that starter homes at £450,000 for young people earning 7% less than their parents' generation is actually a very good prospect for people owning their own homes. The Prime Minister is rightly concerned, Mr. Speaker, and she said this: if you're black, you're treated more harshly than if you're white. So before appointing her new Foreign Secretary, did she discuss with him his description of black people as piccaninnies and why he questioned the motives of the US President Obama on his part Kenyan heritage?
Well, the right honourable gentleman started his question by making reference to the issue of starter homes and the upper limit in London of the £450,000. And I've sat on these benches and heard him raise that with my right honourable friend, the member for Witney, when he was Prime Minister on a number of occasions. Can I just explain this to the Leader of the Opposition? If you look at house prices across the country, they vary. In Liverpool, the average house price is just over £116,000. In London, the average house price is just over £676,000. That's why we have a higher limit for the starter home figure in London. If he objects to that, then he needs to tell his constituents why he is against them having opportunities to get on the house. He refers to the remarks I made, and it is correct that if you are black, you will be treated more harshly in the criminal justice system. It's exactly why, as Home Secretary, I dealt with the issue of stop and search. I was concerned to make sure that nobody should be stopped and searched on the streets of this country because of the colour of their skin. I did that as a Conservative. 13 years of Labour did nothing on it.
Jeremy Corbyn! Mr. Speaker, my question was actually about the language used by the Foreign Secretary. Earlier this week, the new Chancellor abandoned the government's budget surplus target, as Labour has long called for. Her government is already missing its targets on debt, deficit, welfare cap and productivity. 6 years of government austerity has failed. The long-term economic plan is clearly dead. Is there a new one?
No, it's the long-term economic plan that has actually delivered the record level of employment that we see today. And perhaps I could just put the right honourable gentleman straight. We have not abandoned the intention to move to a surplus. What I have said is that we will not be targeting that at the end of this Parliament. But he uses the language of austerity. Can I just say this to him? He talks about austerity. I call it living within our means. He talks about austerity, but actually it's about not saddling our children and grandchildren with significant debts to come. And it's not about austerity, it's about ensuring we have an economy that works for everyone.
Mr. Speaker, jobless claims have risen for the 4th month in a row. Welfare claims have risen as well. Austerity actually means people being poorer, services being cut and local facilities being closed. In her speech on the steps of Downing Street, she also addressed insecure workers, saying you have a job, but you don't always have job security. Does that mean to those people that are worried about their future in work, I'm talking of the people that sent us here to serve them. Does that mean that she's proposing to scrap the employment tribunal fees, repeal the Trade Union Act, or ban zero-hours contract, as more than a dozen European nations have already done? That would help to give greater job security to many very worried people in this country.
Again, I say to the right honourable gentleman, yes, I did say that on the streets of Downing Street, and I think it's very important that here in this House we consider not only what might be called the more obvious injustices, but actually consider the life for those people for whom they are in work but struggling to make ends meet. It's essential. That's one of the things that the government has actually raised the threshold at which people start to pay income tax, for example. But it's also about making sure that we have more well-paid